Everybody. Welcome to the latest in the Phase 3 Meets series. I'm delighted this week and for this episode to have Steve Arnold joining us. Steve is the CEO. Hello, Steve. Slightly delayed wave there. Steve is the CEO of eDays. Which is an absence management software system. I'm sure it does a hell of a lot more than that as well. So I'm going to pass over to you, Steve. How are you? You okay?
Well? Great, thank you. Yeah, great, thanks, Assad.
Good.
I'm sitting here on my own in the office in Nottingham, UK, and delighted to be chatting with you today.
Lovely. Okay, so why don't we start? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about eDays, what you guys do, a bit of the kind of company history, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay. So we're a scale-up software as a service business. We're HR tech focused, but we're really focused on one specific area of HR technology, and that is absence. So planned absence and unplanned absence. So we basically help companies manage compliancy around annual leave entitlements, tracking approvals and requests,
Okay.
and reporting, of course, for payroll, and unplanned absence, so sickness tracking. And we started looking through the sickness side into employee health and well-being. So we've started introducing more tools that actually help companies manage their employee health and well-being as well. And rather than absence management, which maybe has sort of absence is a bit of a negative connotation, what we're trying to do now is coin the phrase absence intelligence, because our system is really helping companies intelligently manage their employees' time off. So that's a little bit about what eDays is and what it does. I guess we'll probably go into more detail there, but maybe the one extra thing to mention, it's a self-service system. Employees log in, mobile enabled, as well as desktop or whatever type of device you need to use it. Very, very simple, very nice user experience, and essentially it becomes a very business critical tool for companies. Small, large and medium businesses use it. So the likes of Canon, Sony, AXA, are all customers of eDays, but also we have SMEs all the way down to companies that are maybe 30, 40, 50 people in size.
Okay.
Ourselves, we're a small business. We're 50 staff. We've grown by about 50% over the last 12 to 18 months. And we've got about 10 recs open right now. So even during this pandemic, we're putting our foot on the gas and growing. There's a lot of demand for what we do. We think there's also going to be a big surge in demand because of leave and absence management being so critical to businesses, particularly at a time of need with the pandemic. eDays to store, track, manage, and alert people to certain outcomes. And we've got clients who are using, COVID-related symptoms and checking and alerts around all of that to help them at this time of need. So yeah, we're putting our foot on the gas to try and grow there. In terms of history, very quickly, we started as a bootstrapped startup. We actually had another company. eDays was just a product within that company for a while, bit of a side racket that we were running.
Okay.
To put it weirdly, I guess. But we built 5 or 6 different products, all SaaS products, stuck websites up for them and try to see if we could find a niche. And eDays was the one that really got the best traction, and it became the main part of the business. We separated that out as its own business in March 2016, got private equity money in November 2017 to complete a management buyout. And since then, we've been trying to grow quicker.
Brilliant. And I mean, in terms of your sweet spot then of customers, kind of size wise, you mentioned obviously you have anything and everything there really. Is there a sweet spot? Is there a focus in terms of the next 2 to 3 years in terms of the type of customer you want to be going for and the size of?
There is, yeah. And just to cover the sort of a slightly more broader answer there. So we're not turning business away, really. In terms of the very small businesses, maybe we are. A company that's sort of 20, 30 people, there are probably other systems that might be more suitable for them to use, or other cheaper, sort of simpler systems that they might use. eDays is more for the sort of next rung up of businesses. If you've got 30, 40, 50, 100 people, it starts to get quite difficult to manage time off easily. So eDays becomes very, very viable for those businesses. And we won't turn businesses away that are SMEs. In fact, originally we thought it was an SME product when we first started, until we started realizing actually the big companies are having massive problems here because their big HR systems just can't provide the flexibility that they need. So we started bringing on these bigger customers. Then we realized actually that's probably the direction for us. But because we're an inbound model, we get about 150 inquiries a month, between 100 and 150 inquiries a month to our website. And that could be any size of business. And we're going to keep going because we've got an SME team that can work on that. And let's make sure those companies get their problems solved with eDays as well. But in terms of our proactive approaches and our partnerships that we're developing, we're very much going upstream. So we're trying to bring in the sort of 500 plus type size businesses, typically businesses that already got an HR system, typically a business that might be multi-geo and therefore have very complex requirements for absence management because it's such a complex area. It lends itself to having extra firepower like a product like eDays and then integrating it with the HR system and with payroll systems. So yeah, we're heading after the bigger businesses. At the moment, the largest company we've got using eDays has got 25,000 users. But what we're finding now is that we're getting very, very close to signing larger deals with organizations got 50, 100,000 person. And we expect by the end of the year to have signed several of those. So that's the direction of travel, really, Assad. Yeah.
And do you have any particular sectors that you focus on, or is it across is across kind of a wide variety?
It's a really wide variety. Traditionally, we haven't been so much in hospitality and retail and those sort of high intensity businesses where you've got shift rota patterns swapping going on all the time, a lot of rostering. That's typically not been our market. And actually, given the pandemic right now, I'm kind of thankful for that, given those markets have been so badly hit. eDays more relies on businesses that have predetermined working patterns and styles of work, so more professional services businesses. Having said that, we do have some retailers, we do have some supply chain logistics businesses. It works very well for those organizations. We've got a lot of sort of banks, financial services, media, technology type businesses, very, very broad. And the other interesting is it's global, so companies in over 120 different countries are using eDays. And we've translated it into 20 different languages. So it's nice having such a big addressable market, but it also makes it a bit challenging when you're going to target companies because you need to be focused. And that's a bit we struggled with a little bit, and one that I would give myself a different bit of advice starting out, or a little bit a few years ago, saying, look, Steve, focus, target, and build capability in a specific. When you're going after a market, go after a smaller market. It's quite challenging with the size of the market we've got.
Well, I'm absolutely no expert in absence, and obviously I know through the work we've done over the last few years at Phase 3 that it's an area that is notorious for being extremely complex and complicated. In your experience, Steve, which sector do you think has the most kind of complex absence schemes and that kind of thing?
So
or from the customers you deal with, maybe. Obviously, I know you can't probably speak for every sector, can you?
No, that's okay. That's okay. I get the question. So I think some companies need a combination of time and attendance systems where you're clocking out of the building or clocking into an app, or and need very heavy rostering, so shift swapping and things going on, and very, very fluid shift and rota patterns, and absence management, very complicated absence management, maybe global requirements and absence management. If you've got those three requirements, you're in a very challenging situation, because there isn't really a system that covers all those three really, really well. You either have a very, very good time and attendance system, or a very good rostering system, or a very good absence management system like eDays. So those businesses really struggle in this area. But now, where we're strong isn't on those rostering and time and attendance. We're very much absence management focused. So the complex customers we have are less around sector, more around their organizational structure. So if you imagine a company that's got a presence in over 100 different countries around the world, lots of people speaking different languages. English might not even be the first language for lots of them, and therefore they need a multilingual application. There's huge variety in legislation around absence, around all these different countries. So different leave entitlements, different pots of entitlement, different absence types, different carryover policies, and not only just within the country, it can be within different pockets of the country, or companies that have different employment contracts for different people. And that's where it gets absolutely complicated. And that's where we love it, because if a company is in that situation and they've got this massive complexity around what they need to comply with, then we're the only company that can really do it. So,
Right.
so then we find that those are just ideal opportunities for us, because multi-geo, very complex. eDays can be configured to map around all the different employee groups, so that
Yeah.
you end up with a compliant system. And that's just the compliance side. The other aspect is complexity around sickness management policies and well-being policies and
Hmm.
initiatives. So some companies are very hot on employee well-being and wanting to track illnesses and sicknesses and lengths of sicknesses and durations, then have all these initiatives to try and bring that down and manage the business.
Yep.
If they got all that complexity in there as well, that's another a challenge for companies that the intelligence of eDays can really help with all of that. So a couple of different flavors of complexity there.
Okay, good. And that kind of leads on to my next question in terms of the key differentiators between eDays and other companies in your in your kind of sector. Why would people kind of, what are the top three reasons, if you like, for, I'm putting you on a spot here, aren't I, blatantly, but top three areas that people would work with eDays?
Okay, so buying reasons, I guess we're talking about here
Yeah,
is that,
yeah,
one of the interesting, one of the key buying reasons for lots of businesses still moving from spreadsheets and paper-based methods for managing absence,
yep,
because it's so complicated. Um, and there's no systems often that can do it, or your HR system can't do it properly. Companies are relying on paper and spreadsheets and calculators to work out what people are
well,
entitled
yeah,
to, what they're booking. And there's some poor group of people, normally in HR, who have to manage all that and sort of spot all, and therefore they're in that sort of very old school method. And a lot of companies are still making that migration. So it's quite a large pocket. And you'd be surprised how big those businesses are. And we've
okay,
got businesses that have got 10, 20,000 people who are managing absence in that way, because of the complexity, and they just haven't been able to find a solution to do it until they find eDays. So that's one key buying reason. Another key buying reason, and again, differentiator for eDays here,
hmm,
is that what I touched on earlier about all the complexities, all the multi-geos, and all of the different wonderful ways of working that companies, employees have in different areas. It's so complicated that you need a flexible solution that can be configured around all those different requirements. And that's where it's very difficult to get that from a Workday or a SuccessFactors or one of
yeah,
those
yeah,
Oracle, big HR systems. You end up with a huge cost to try and bespoke the system to allow it to comply with all of your rules. And
hmm,
if you do that, you might need to assign a development team to develop out that area
okay,
of the system.
yeah,
And then you're on a problem with upgrades and support, and you're going off grid with the lead product in terms of the update programs,
yeah,
and then you're in all that minefield.
hmm,
So what we've got as a differentiator there is you can go live in eDays super quick. A big company, with 5,000 people could go live with eDays in a few months, if they're organized, as opposed to having a 12-month development program and project management
yeah,
cycle, which then has all the risks associated with it and complexities, and
yeah,
you might not even get there, and at a fraction of the cost. So that's
yeah,
where we've tried to, the flexibility is where we've
yeah,
tried to
yeah.
build ourselves around.
I mean, I've got to say, I don't know if people watching this video will agree with me. I'm absolutely loving your passion, your excitement for the business, obviously your knowledge and understanding of your business as well. And I think that really shines through in the few conversations you and I have had. It's not every day you get to speak with someone who's so kind of engaged and involved, especially, but it sounds a bit daft as a CEO. Not all CEOs are that engaged in the actual, nuts and bolts, should we say, of the business. And I think that's really, really fantastic.
Thank
Um,
you.
and on that kind of CEO, what kind of changes, if any, have you had to implement, obviously during COVID and the lockdown, to kind of ensure business continuity, Steve?
Okay. I mean, firstly, thank you very much for that endorsement there. It's good that that comes through. I am that sort of person
It
who
does
gets
blatantly and
excited.
clearly comes through. Yeah.
Sometimes get overly excited about it, but I figure that we're going to spend a lot of time working, and we don't all have the great opportunity of building something from scratch.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
let's make the most of that. Be thankful for it and enjoy it, and try and bring that passion through to other people as well, then people maybe
Got it.
be more motivated to work for you and want to join. And that's my mentality. I always had this dream that I would have a company that if I worked in any part of that company, I would enjoy it and have fun and be recognized and valued. And we don't always get it right. There's sometimes little stresses around the companies you're bound to sort of deal with, but we try to have the right intention and try and address things nice and quickly. But yeah, it's nice for you to say that. Thank you. In terms of changes following COVID, so we were very fortunate situation. So as a tech business, everyone already had laptops. All of our systems that we use are web-based. So actually, the office is a nice to have rather than a necessary thing to have. We wanted to have a nice presence. We want to welcome people into a great community. We want to create a great culture. But actually, flipping to a working from home model was very easy. A lot of people were already doing some days from home anyway. So it was relatively straightforward to do that. The challenge that we did have was making sure that there's still community and engagement. So eDays is a very sociable company. We've got loads of great fun things going on. We've got a fun stuff committee. It's actually called that.
It's called the Fun Stuff Committee.
Fun Stuff Committee, yeah.
I mean, anything called the Fun Stuff Committee has to be fun.
Yeah. And there's lots of socials. We do quizzes. There's various things going on all the time. And I was a bit worried that we'd lose that by going virtual, and you do have to work harder at it. And so we got our Friday happy hours, we got quizzes still going on, and it's a matter of making sure everyone stays engaged. We've increased the contact with our teams. Our leaders are increasing the contact with their teams. There's daily scrum meetings for all teams every day, so everyone's sort of getting everyone engaged. And we're doing a lot more surveying of our people. How are you feeling? How's things going? What can we be doing better? We've stepped up on our all hands meetings and our heads of department meetings, so they're more regular, so that everyone knows what's going on. Because that was one of the big challenges. I think companies and people are concerned right now. What's going on with furlough? What's going on with the company health? Is the company financially sustaining itself? What changes are we making? And so we've been very open with all of our team. We haven't had to make anyone furlough yet. So far, so that's great. We haven't made anyone redundant so far, so we've been in a good position. We had a good cash balance, and we've got a very good audience of captive customer base who are still renewing nicely with us. It's eDays is an important system at this time for people still. So we haven't had to make too many drastic changes there, but we have wanted to make sure that the communication's there for the team, so they know that we have had a couple of tough months. March and April was a slowdown in new business, absolutely no question whatsoever, because companies have been tightening their belt, and the last thing they're wanting to do is introduce a new system when they've got loads of other things going on. We feel that is very short-lived, and we're starting to come out the back of that now, actually, and it's been great to see. But we wanted to communicate that with our teams. They knew, rather than just sort of pretending everything's perfect and nothing's changed. People deserve to know where they've invested their time in a company. They deserve to know what's going on. So we've stepped up the communications. And a couple of other things, just very quickly, are customer contact. We've just got so focused on our customers right now, making sure that we're spending our time talking, reaching out to those customers more than ever, and making sure they're getting great value from the system. That's been another very important thing that we've upped our game on. Although we already had a customer success team, we've started taking it a little bit more of a different route to make sure the contact's increased.
I mean, I echo all of that. I mean, I think it's been a great time to really get to know your team. We are very similar. Phase 3 are very similar to you guys in terms of kind of small organization, close knit, a huge ethos on having fun. Irrelevant of where you're working from, office or home. And again, our setup is very similar. Working from home is not really an issue for us. And we were talking about this the other day, actually, on one of our Teams calls, that we feel that we've got to know people a lot better. Actually, because you see people in the office and you're talking about work, you're talking about home, partner, whatever it may be. But there's been occasions where people sat there with the babies, holding them, and the babies are talking as 1 and 2 year olds do, have no idea what's going on in the Teams call, getting involved. You see people's pets and people talking about this and that. And we had a live hair shaving of one of our ladies for charity online, and Emma and stuff like that. And the general feel in the nation in terms of the NHS clap on a Thursday, it's a really nice feel about the place, isn't there? And I think this has kind of really taught us that actually there's so much more to the people that work with us rather than just the regular 9 to 5 type thing.
Yeah.
And I think you say, customer success and speaking to your customers. I don't know if you found this, but we found that it's actually been significantly easier to get hold of people because everyone's literally at home.
Yeah. People are
And
more happy for the call because they actually want the contact more.
pass the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I totally agree on the getting to know your people more. I reckon I have more FaceTime now with my team than I
yeah,
ever did before, because instead
yeah,
of booking a room and having to schedule a
yeah,
room and getting
yeah,
someone in there, then taking them away from the desk, which you only want to do if it's necessary because you don't want to waste people's time and things. You can just flick up a call and you're in there for 5 minutes and you've got a room. Your room is here
absolutely.
like it is with us now, and I prefer that a lot to probably where it was before. So I think we're going to make a lot of changes. I'm loving the fact I'm spending more time with my family as well. So
Of course.
I've got young children, well, one young child and another one on the way. And I'm fortunate I've got an office at home, which means I don't have to sort
Yeah,
of be working out. And I'm totally mindful of the fact that that's not the same for everybody, and lots of people have struggles working from home. So I have a very nice situation. But it is good to see the contact with the people. One thing I have noticed though is there are some people you have to work a bit harder with to make sure you do have contact with, because there's naturally some people in the business that you don't need to call
yeah,
because you're not that closely overlapped. Whereas in the office, when you're walking around, you'll be speaking to everybody because
yeah,
you see them and how you doing. You spot them in the canteen or in our kitchen here. You're having little interactions with people, even if you're
yeah,
not got that much reason to. But I've realised there's some people who I haven't been doing that so much with because I just didn't see it. So you've got to make an effort to do it.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do more of.
Okay. So what what tips would you give? I mean, you're obviously, 15, 16 years in the business now, obviously running a very successful business there. What tips would you give lesser experienced CEOs? Maybe someone who's kind of a year to 5 years into the business, and all of a sudden, this pandemic's come along, and perhaps their business hasn't, financially or is just not as stable for whatever reasons. What tips would you give them in terms of how to manage the next few months, I suppose, into kind of 2021 and beyond? Really, what should they be doing?
Okay, so I thought you were going down the question of what general advice would you give someone who's just started sort of earlier on in their career
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
And if that was the question, I'll answer both. I'll answer that and the question, the more specific
Yeah.
question you asked. If it generally, I would be thinking a lot about the team around me, your kind
Yeah.
of your immediate inner circle. I think
Hmm.
we could have benefited by having more experienced people earlier on. Because we're
Yeah.
bootstrapping, we're very careful about money and spending. You're kind of hiring lots of inexperienced people and then trying to get them to become more
Yeah.
experienced, which is slower. Now, I know you have to do a little bit of that. A healthy blend of experience in the company is very important. But I think we were trying to wear multiple hats, as you do,
Yeah.
and naturally some of those hats you're going to not wear so well. And I
Yeah.
think we could have probably done with a sort of more experience in a couple of areas earlier on. So I think I would advise myself back then to have made that move a bit quicker. In terms of over the next few months, depending on how your business is financed, cash is going to be critical. If you're a well financed and invested business, you might have much more
Yeah.
runway. And therefore, you need to look at that runway and see how long that's going to last you to determine. Expecting some fairly negative situations to the
Yeah.
economy and looking at
Yeah.
what impact that could do. So I think if companies blindly just crack on and don't remodel and reforecast based on some fairly sensible assumptions of what could happen
Yeah.
with the economy, then you're going to run out of runway very quickly, even if you're well invested.
Hmm.
Those businesses that are bootstrapped, now is a time really to batten down the hatches in quite a lot of areas, because you've got to look at and focus. You might be experimenting at the moment as a bootstrap startup, experimenting on different ways of working, and you've found one that works, but you're
Hmm.
also trying some other ways or other routes to market. I
Yeah.
think right now it's probably about the phrase people use a lot: double down on what
Yeah.
is working, and
Yeah.
focus on that, and don't speculate and experiment quite as much until
Yeah.
you see the economy picking up, because buyers aren't in that mode right now where they are speculating themselves around new technologies or new ways of doing
Yeah.
things so much, unless it's very linked to the pandemic, of course, which is
Yeah.
slightly different. So I'd keep very focused right now on what that works, and look after your cash.
Yeah. Stick to what you do best. Look after your cash. Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. Good. I've got a bit of a quick fire round here. I don't know how quick fire it's going to be, but it's just.
Are you indicating that I answer questions too long?
That's your own paranoia there coming through, Steve.
A little bit. I have been told about that in the past. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be
so
succinct.
good. Okay, it's let's go. Okay, best thing about lockdown.
Family.
Okay, worst thing about lockdown.
Not seeing some of your family.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite app?
Oh, I've got a coffee app called Pact.
A coffee app?
I ordered a coffee from but looking through my apps now, one I really like is House, Houzz.
Oh, the housing kind of interior designy type thing. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because we're doing our house up at the moment. I like the BBC app. I like the Watford FC app, which is my football club. Although it's not really an app, it's more of just the website. And we've just recently spotted this Flight Radar 24 app where you can hold your phone up to the sky and see. I think people are doing that a lot. That's really cool. So there's a few.
And which app do you use the most?
Probably WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Okay. Favorite sports team? You've just answered that, I suppose.
Watford.
Okay. What are your views on football coming back? Just out of interest. That's not one of the questions. I'm going off on one now as well.
Or I'm not sure. I think given Watford's situation right now, we're quite happy for it to end because I think we on the points per game we just about survive. So I think
it's amazing how all these Watford players are coming out with the coronavirus all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And Aston Villa players.
yeah. So I think they should cancel it.
Okay.
I don't think it's worth the risk. I know there's a lot of money now. The only reason why they'd carry on with the season is because of the money, I think, involved.
It is.
So if we're taking money over health, then I'm not sure about that. So.
I think they've been doing that for a while in football and a lot of those sports. And I read the other day, I don't know how true it is. I saw something on Facebook, so it's probably not even that true. It was a cut and paste from something about the football timings when they come back, like a festival of football. There'll be a 12 o'clock, a 2 o'clock, a 4 o'clock, and a 6 o'clock kickoff. And I believe they're all going to be free to air. So BBC, ITV, or whatever. But my missus will kill me.
Well, if that happens,
that's every day. By the way,
let's get on another phone call like this. Let's spend a whole day watching football and drinking beer.
Brilliant. What are you reading at the moment?
So I've just been given a book from a good friend of mine, which is the Into the Cloud. Is it called? The Mark Benioff, the Salesforce.com guy.
Yeah.
Beyond the Cloud, I think it's called.
Okay.
Mark Benioff, which I've just Broken Earth on. Just started reading that one.
Okay. Generally, again, are you a big reader of books, or are you more kind of articles and on your phone kind of app type things?
I don't read novels very much, apart from when I'm on holiday, and then I always return to Michael Connolly and John Grisham books, which are kind of legal thrillers and things, which are an investigator type novels, which I think are great fun, great energy about them. From a business book point of view, again, I probably only read books when I'm on holiday, so I try and when I'm on holiday, I'll read at least one business book. I read Measure What Matters recently from John Doerr, which was really good, and Radical Candor, I can't remember the author, that was an interesting one. I've got a friend who recommends books for me on business books, and so I sort of, when I finish one, I ping him a note, or I say, like, I'm about to go on holiday, what am I going to read, and he'll tell me what to read. Other than that, I do ring fence time every week to read, but it's more online stuff. I read a lot of the SaaStr stuff, SAASTR, I think it's SaaStr, is this very good blog that publish brilliant articles, information from business leaders, particularly in the SaaS industry. And I find that's really useful. So every week I'll ring fence a little bit of time. There's a plug for SaaStr there. They also do these annual conferences in San Francisco and Paris, which I go to, which are just brilliant. It's a real meeting of minds for SaaS people. Brilliant. And really SaaS entrepreneurs should be going to these if they can. So I do ring fence quite a lot of time. I think that learning curve is so important. I did an MBA at Warwick Business School, and that was really good because I learned so much, and I got into the habit of reading a lot from that, and I've tried to keep that up through just general data.
It's interesting what you just said there as well, because I've been reading a lot about what kind of really experienced CEOs have been doing, obviously during the lockdown and this, that, and the other, and one of the points they all say, not all, but most of them say, is to kind of engage with your peer groups. And there's various kind of online communities, isn't there? Because everyone thinks that, CEOs, founders, must know everything already. And well, we don't. Not at all. We're kind of learning on the spot in a lot of cases as well, and stuff like that. So I think engaging with people more experienced, mentors, you could say, or kind of really experienced CEOs who have been there, done that, maybe through the 2007, 2008 economic crisis, and even pre that, I think is really, really important. So that's a tip for anyone who's watching this as well.
Yeah, on that asset, I've got two guys who are sort of vital for me on that mentoring side. One is a guy who's a chairman on our board, who he scaled a tech business and did fantastically out of that, and he's learned so many things along the way that is just vital for me to be able to bounce things off him. So there's a quick nod to Richard Vincent if you end up watching this one, Rich. And then I also got another advisor called Adam Hale, who I think you know actually, and you did
we did a video couple. I know Adam.
Yeah, and Adam obviously he grew rapid growth for his company Fair Sale and exited very well from that a few years ago. And because he has experience in HR tech and rapid growth businesses, he was a brilliant person to try and get on board. And I sort of tried to charm him onto helping us out. And he's become a good friend and a really great mentor, particularly on that sort of rapid growth SaaS business side. So I've got two guys there who, without them, I think it would be a really different world that I'm operating in. You'd be more anxious because you'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Whereas you just pick these guys, phone up to these guys and say, look, I'm thinking of this. Am I right? And they'll say, yeah, brilliant. Or no, this is a better way. And also being open-minded to that and it's key, isn't it?
It makes such a big difference. It makes such a big difference with, someone who's kind of experienced, been there, done that type of approach. I always say to my kids when they're, my kids are kind of 13, 13, 10 and 9. So they're always trying to tell me things and take the mick out my dad jokes and, dad, you don't know what you're doing. Or dad, you're prehistoric and the olden days, all that. Right. But, you can't beat experience. There's no way on earth a 13-year-old can have more experience than a 42-year-old. Yeah, she might have
apart from maybe
Snapchat
Minecraft.
or something. So, Snapchat or Instagram, which I don't use. So other than that, it just experience is key. Absolutely. It's quickfire round, not be that quick. I told you. I did say it at the start.
I'm doing it again, aren't I?
Okay. Last question. Have you ever lied to a customer?
You know what? I would say no on that one because we had a very pragmatic approach to the early parts of eDays. eDays was not able to do a lot of the things that customers needed it to do. And so we were put in that position quite often, like, well, what do we do here? And I just said to myself at that point, I'm just going to be upfront with the customer and let's see what they say. And you'd say, look, it can't do that. It can do all these things, but you want it to do this. Let me investigate to see if we could make the product do that, and then I'll come back to you. And by taking that approach, you're getting credibility, and we've kept doing that actually from very early on. So customers, I think, if like Adam, actually, my mentor I mentioned earlier, he always says get a no in early when you're talking to a customer because it adds credibility. If they're asking you, if everything you're saying is yes, so sometimes there's a bit of authenticity missing there. There's got to be some things you can't do. So find a way of getting a no in so that companies understand that you're striving towards doing stuff, not having the complete picture. So no, we don't lie. We don't lie to customers.
Good.
Hopefully that's the right answer, right?
Well, surely the right answer can't be yes, we do. No, brilliant. I've really enjoyed this, Steve. I hope you have too. I really appreciate your time. I hope the guys watching have learned something. And final thing on this, if anyone watching this wants to get in contact with eDays, what do they do? Do they LinkedIn, website? How do they contact you guys?
Yeah, all of the above. If they want to contact me directly, LinkedIn is fine, and I love getting more connections and hearing from people. We're recruiting a lot of people as well, so certainly look out on our careers page. There's an inquiries and contact us section on our website. That's easy to get hold of our. It comes through to me. I get a lot of those. Because that's where we get our inquiries. So sometimes you get people contacting us from that any time, or steve.arnold@edays.com. That's e-days.com. That's another way of getting hold of me.
Brilliant. Steve, thank you very much for your time. I wish you every success in the future. I'm sure you're going to go on and do magnificent things. Thank you, everybody. Keep a lookout for the next Phase 3 Meets episode. We've got some real big hitters coming up in the world of HR tech. So yeah, thank you for watching, and stay safe.
Cheers, guys.